Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Podcast. Today I have invited a very special guest who resides in the UK, who has a story to be told that will fill your heart to the brim. I would like to welcome Christine Wright. Christine, hello to you. I'm not going to say any more till I say hello. How are you?
I'm good. And hello, my gorgeous friend, Mary. You've been a very important part of my life. So yes, it's lovely to see you and catch up.
That's very sweet of you. Now, Christine, I thought we might start 2011. You got some pretty, what shall we say, challenging to the core news. Would you like to tell our listeners all about that?
Yes, well, in 2011, after a year of not doing much exercise, because I had a really serious hamstring injury, I just got to a point where I was feeling incredibly unfit and getting out of breath. And I finally went to my doctor. And as I sat in his surgery, he picked up the phone, having listened to my heart and my pulse rate, and basically booked me into the Rapid Access Heart Clinic to get myself tested to see what was going wrong with my heart. 2 weeks later, I went to that clinic. They put all the pads on me so they could stress test me on a treadmill. And they actually said, we can't put you on there. We will give you a stroke because of what was going wrong with my heart. And what was initially diagnosed was a condition called atrial fibrillation, which is the top of your heart all out of sync. And then on further investigation, I was diagnosed with a serious heart condition called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which basically means my heart has or had didn't have the ability to pump the sufficient amount of blood around my body because it was thickened and stiffened in my left ventricle. So that's why I had atrial fibrillation, because my heart had been pulling the blood around rather than it getting pushed around so much. So,
and what was the implications for you? What happened to you once you had this very serious diagnosis? My goodness, it's like a punch, isn't it?
Gosh, yes. I mean, I actually walked out of that clinic with meds to help strengthen my heart. And just a total shock. You know, I'd been a sport lover, a fitness lover all my life. I'd skied, I'd run, I'd swum, climbed up mountains. And it was just like, really? I don't understand this one. And it was a hammer blow. It really was. And, you know, it was that whole thing of trying to find a way to, I remember getting back home and sitting on my sofa and saying to myself, right, I need to let my siblings know. And how do I do that? You know, because again, it's big news. I'm their sister, just been diagnosed with a serious heart condition. And yes, they were hard phone calls to make.
Absolutely. With that shocking news, what was the prognosis at that time, Christine? Do you remember what they said? A bit of a blur.
They basically said, you know, we can give you medication to help. And because at that stage, I was managing. So they said medication. But a year later, I actually had ICD, which is a defibrillator planted in my chest. It paces the heart as well as basically gives me a shock if my heart stopped. So that was the situation. So you knew that, yes, there was a situation of, there was a time scale to whenever. And I remember being told by my lovely cardiologist, who I got to know over the next 12 years very well, that it could end up in transplant.
And how do you remember how you feel? I mean, I know that's,
Well, again, it's a long time ago, but yeah, I mean, it just, it roots you to the floor, to the ground, you're just like, well, okay. But then I would say I was glad that I had been diagnosed. I mean, I remember being in a meeting with people who, like a support group for people with the ICDs, implantable cardio defibrillator, that's what it is. And there was a husband and wife there, and he was sitting there because she was the one with the box in her chest. And he was saying, "Oh, well, I'm okay. I'm lucky. I haven't got any problems." And the leader of the discussion actually said, in actual fact, she's in a better place than you because she's being watched over.
my goodness,
Because,
a box in your
because
chest.
it was. And I mean, once that was in my chest, I felt very safe because I knew it was being monitored. So all the information from my heart was downloaded onto a system every night when I was in bed.
Okay, so a download every night. And did you
Yeah.
have to hook this up, or did it just happen?
It was just like a little remote thing because it just spoke to it. It's a little receiver thing that was under my bed, and that would just download every day.
My goodness.
And if there was anything, if it wasn't going to work, my heart, it would have given me a shock, which, touch wood, it never actually happened to me, but it does happen to people, which is a defib, like being thumped in the chest.
Absolutely. So I'm thinking about this going, how did you manage your mindset? What was going on? Do you remember? Like, I know it's a bit of an ask. It's a while ago.
I actually think that I had, through a lot of my life, built up, unbeknown to me, a level of resilience and strength, being Miss Independent that I had been, and the type of person I had been. And I think that was there. But I also then, I think I thought and found other ways to help me through, because there are times that you would just sit there and say, why me? I mean, I really did say those words, why me? Because it seemed unfair.
Well, absolutely. It seems unfair. So how did you change from why me to a positive mindset? Here you go. You've got a box in your chest. How do you flip from one to the other?
I wouldn't say I flipped, I grew, I think. I mean, it's 2011. I was diagnosed. End of a lovely Christmas present, 20th of December. Would you believe? So,
Oh God!
But the change, I suppose, came through people I met, new people, because I had in 2008 left my husband, and actually had said to him, I need to go and find me. I felt I had lost who Christine was. And I suppose even sort of attracted people to me that were going to help me, that I didn't know. And they were people through other, through MLM businesses, through at the gym. I reconnected with the doctor that I used to know when I lived down in Twickenham. And because I moved back down to where I had been for years. And it basically, it was through, some of it through the people and some through the organizations that I was involved with, which were all about sort of self-development, whether it was with regard to the business or, just within yourselves. it just came. And then I got a taste for it, and then basically went and found specific businesses that would be about mindset, about self-improvement.
That was
So
quite
yeah,
timely, isn't it? Interesting.
yeah.
What do you think about that with the regard to the universe? Suddenly these supports
Mm.
popped their heads up to support you. Is that how you saw it? And
I
still,
didn't do that. I didn't at the time, but I do now. I really do. And, I have really come to the belief of that things are meant to be. We are meant to meet. And like you and I, Mary, we haven't ever met in person, which one day I would absolutely adore to do. But we just get on, we clicked, and we had this conversations that are so easy. And you see me, which is something that I actually adore too, because there are people in my life, including my family, that don't really see who I am today and what I've been through. So it's those sort of things that I say, it's almost been a bit, God, what's the word? I can't think. No, can't think of that word. But it just happened. But it was this, obviously, in my head now, it's spiritual, it's connected. You
yes,
meet the right people. Like recently I've just had some counseling, nothing to do specifically with mental health, but it was I have a very noisy neighbor here, and very stressful neighbor. So in the time when I was here, when I first moved to Farnham, I actually moved here because I had been connected to a hospice, because in 2018 I was referred for heart transplant, and basically after all the tests I wasn't viable. So I was then classed as being palliative care. So that was basically end game route. And so I moved to be near Farnham, or in Farnham, to be near the hospice. And obviously had a lot to deal with in my head then, because I was doing okay with the box in my chest, but then the box wasn't going to be able to do enough, or they hadn't got any other meds. So, and she's totally stressed me all the time. And the counsellor gave me some counselling, and that basically was, again, the right person for me. We sat and talked like we are, Mary. And again, I just said, well, that was the universe saying, or whatever, that it happened, and we connected, and she really helped me shift some really big things just
that's
in three
brilliant.
sessions. So yeah.
Wow. You must have been, what is it? And the student is ready, the teacher
Yeah.
is. So
Yeah.
7 years on,
Yeah.
you were referred to the heart transplant team.
Yeah.
You did all the testing, and then they said you're not a viable candidate. Is that what you just said? Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, that's very shocking. So then you went from essentially waiting for a heart very quickly to palliative care. Have I
Yeah.
understood that? Oh my
Yes, I mean,
goodness.
I never got to the stage of thinking, oh, I'm going to get a transplant. It was a review and just see. So I wasn't waiting for a heart, but it was, I mean, if you had been in that room or on that ward when I was told, there was a huge wail that came out of my mouth, because it was like, oh my God, this is it. There's nothing else. And that was like, yeah, I'm going only one way. And that, yes, that was very hard to get my head around.
Incredibly
Very hard.
confronting and
Yeah.
challenged every bit of your resilience,
Every,
because
yeah,
you've
every
come so
sinew,
far. Yes,
every
exactly.
sinew. It was just, and all of that, I had friends and some family around me, but essentially I live my life very much on my own because I'm not with a partner. So yeah, who do I go and get a hug from?
Well, that's right. My gosh, I think you said something before about me seeing you
Mm,
and seeing then and feeling and understanding and just that connection. And then you're talking about the physicalness of just having someone
mm,
come and give you a hug.
mm,
It's quite a lot of deprivation, isn't it? Firstly, you're being told you're in the palliative care line, excuse the expression. Now you've made a shift to there. How did you cope with all that, Christine? What was going on?
Again, I could actually say what people call me Miss Positive, Positive, and they have done for a long time, and always say that I've got my sparkle. And then they said, yes, you did start to lose a bit of your sparkle, but it's some of it I can't say how I managed it. It was just there through osmosis, through just an inner strength that, in respect, I never knew I had. And then when I had discovered back in, I think, 2014, I discovered Reiki, got into meditation, that sort of learning as well, and understanding and taking self-care. Me is important to me, most
Absolutely.
importantly.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
goodness. And, I just read on your Facebook page that was it November, you ran 50 miles for the British Heart Foundation. Is that right?
I didn't read. I didn't run. I walked,
You
but I
walked.
did. Yeah, but it's still a lot for me. But
You bet.
not all in one go, but over October, because I wanted to give back, because they've obviously helped me massively with all the research they've done in the past with regard to the hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and also, in actual fact, for me, understanding how it happened. I mean, in actual fact, my condition, I have a defective gene, and it's in our family
Oh my
that
gosh.
we didn't know about. And that's been quite a challenge for me too, because my siblings have had the opportunity to have testing, and the genetic testing, because they offer me it when I was in hospital. And I said, yeah, do that. It'd be interesting to know, because we have no idea of heart conditions in our family. And so far, my elder sister and my younger sister have been tested, but my brother hasn't yet, which, again, it hurts, because basically they have children. My younger sister has children. She's been tested, and she actually has the gene. So her children are now being tested to check whether they have it. My elder sister was fine, but my brother, who has grandchildren, still hasn't been tested, which, again, for me, having had the condition, didn't know about it till I was 54.
Yes.
Although it had been with me all my life, and there were indicators all my life, is a bit of a hard thing to swallow, but
Yes, it
it's
is.
his choice.
Yes. And I have been, as a nurse for 20 years, I've been aware of those kind of tests for numerous things, and I know the courage it takes and the confrontation and the pressure that it puts on families. I know I jumped ahead a little bit, but I couldn't help that walk came to my mind. So let's go back.
Yeah.
Let's fill the gap between
Sorry.
2018 to now, because something changed. What year did that change? That there was
22.
something was 22.
22. Yeah.
Is that when the agenda of a new heart was placed on the table again?
Well, there's a whole, everything changed. Again, I would say once I was diagnosed, I was very, and I have been to an extent all my life, very self-aware of my body. I listen to it. I pay attention to what's happening with it. And I had been put on a new drug in the end of 2021 that they said, oh, this will help give you some extra strength in your heart. It was a drug that was in actual fact for diabetics, but it showed cardiac improvement in diabetic people. So they said, look, anything that can help your heart, because there ain't much else, that's another one to get your head around.
Yes, it is.
And it worked for me to a point, but then what it was doing is actually stops an amount of absorption of the glucose. And I'm not a big person, so starving me of glucose and energy left me really lacking some oomph, get up and go. So just me being me, because I had contact into Harefield Hospital, which was a hospital I was referred to initially for transplant. I rang the heart failure nurse, and they're always strange words to be saying, heart failure. And I said, what do I do? This drug really doesn't work for me. Do I stop it straight away? Do I have to taper off it? And she said, I don't know. Let me speak to the doctors and we'll come back to you. And again, somebody was guiding me to make that phone call, because basically the doctor came back and said, we haven't seen her for 4 years, bring her in. And they did the next round of big checks, which is basically the big test between whether you get a transplant or you're viable for transplant or not, is the pressure between your heart and your lungs.
Okay.
And they
So
do
we're
that.
in 2018 now, 2022, beg your pardon.
That's 22. We're in 2022 May, end of May. So on the 25th of May, which is another big day for me in my head, on 2022, I was told I was transplantable.
Wow. How was that for you?
Well, it was actually, before they actually told me, I thought, oh, this sounds interesting, because I'm lying on the test, and they do a, don't be too graphic, but they do a test down there, catheter into your heart, balloon catheter, so they can pressure between your heart and lungs. And the last time they had done it, 4 years previously, the pressure was high and they couldn't lower it with drugs. This time, the pressure was lower and they could lower it with drugs. So that made me viable. And I was lying on the table and you could just hear, oh, that looks good. Oh, that looks better. Oh. And then they came and said, Christine, you're transplantable. And I'm lying there on my back with all the stuff around me. Just go, oh my God. So yes, that was quite a delight.
Absolutely. And then it was a waiting period. How long did you actually wait then to get your transplant?
Because at that stage they classed me as urgent, I went through the process of just getting everything ticked off, and then they admitted me to hospital on the September 11th to sit and wait for a heart, because they needed me in, because when your body is receiving a new heart, it has to be in the best place it can be, even with your bad heart. So I was in hospital waiting on a drug that basically helps strengthen your heart. You had to be on it 24/7, so you're on a drip and you're walking around with this thing all day, every day attached to it. So you couldn't have that outside of hospital. So basically I was just sitting and waiting, and it could have been any length of time. They do the antibody tests and everything, and I knew I had high level antibodies, which meant it might be difficult. The other parts were, I was a smaller lady, so again, it's just you need to match the size of heart. You can't put a big heart into a smaller body because it just won't work. It's just too powerful.
How did you manage all that? How did you manage that? You're in hospital, you're connected to an IV, you're waiting, you're waiting, you're waiting. Can you describe to the listeners what that was like so they can really grasp this time?
So you actually do get into a routine because obviously they're checking you. You set your SATs, 3 times a day or 4 times a day. You get to know the nurses. You find ways to keep yourself busy. But again, it was, at least in my head, it was, I'm here, at least I'm here, rather than not. And I mean, I didn't have that long. I mean, I actually, so I went on the 11th, which was Sunday. By the Tuesday, or was it the following Tuesday, I was actually, they'd done the test and they had got me, said, yeah, you're in the right place. We can put you on the list, basically, because you can be in hospital and not on the list, because you've got to be in the right, your body's got to be, and things got to be in the right balance.
And were
And
there other people with you? Excuse me interrupting, but I'm just trying to set the scene. Are you waiting in hospital with other people, in a ward with other people who are also waiting? How does it?
we are in a ward, but each room, we have a room each. So you're not in a big long ward. You're actually in your own room, because again, I don't think you could manage it if you were just in a mixed, an open ward, because
No,
you
it'd be
need
quite
your headspace.
right. Yep.
And you can create your own space. So some have lots of things on their walls, and the one guy there who had, was up, well, 2 of them were up from Cornwall, and one had lots of grandchildren, so they used to bring paintings and things and stick them on the wall and things. And yes, you get to know those people. You go and sit and talk with them and learn where they're from and what their issues are and how their journey had got them here. Because 3 people, 4 people I got to know, all very different to me. So, unfortunately for me, I say I was only in just over a week, then put on the list on, gosh, the Tuesday afternoon. So something like
It's interesting. I'm watching you. You know the
22.
dates, you probably know
Yeah.
the times. So when did you finally get the word, yes, there's no more waiting, it's going to happen?
Well, in actual fact, I got it 3 times.
Okay.
Because I actually had, I was put on that list. Yep, you're on the list. That evening, I was offered a heart.
Oh my gosh.
And they said, that's never happened before. As it happened when they went to see the heart, because it's a whole process of retrieving the organs, etc. And they came back and said it's not good. It's not good enough, because they won't put an imperfect heart in.
No.
Because what's the sense of putting an imperfect heart in when this person's been living with an imperfect heart?
Exactly.
And then I was also offered another one. I can't remember that date, but that one was a closer call. I'd already been going, get your body showered in the shower, the cleansing thing you need to have
Oh
before you
wow,
go
yes, that
into.
is close.
So I got
Okay.
closer.
And the third
But
one?
that one, they couldn't actually get a flight for it, so I didn't get that one. And then the third one came, and again, it was all very, very surreal when they come in and say, we've got a heart for you, because you get told, and then there's still a long wait until they say, right, it's going ahead. And when it's going ahead, everything happens, because basically you then leave that ward or that room, so everything has to come out that place. And it's sort of like you go on the gurney down to the operating room, and everything else goes to somewhere else. And yes, it was again, that was a very it was actually, in fact, the night I was told on the evening of the 14th of October.
2022, we're still in
2022. So I've been in hospital waiting 5.5 weeks, which is no time at all. No time at all. I've been extremely lucky with that. I mean, I could still be in there waiting.
Mm.
So, and yeah, I mean, I was going off on the trolley going, bye, everybody. I'm going, you know, that's my mindset. I was just like, wow,
Spirits were high.
yes, because this is my chance. And I had two very special sets of people there. Sorry.
You take your time. Take your time. This is important.
The lady, Leslie, who had been my GP when I lived in Twickenham. So I'd known her now for about 40 years. She had been with me right through the process. And she was there. And then I had another friend, Suzanne, and her partner, and she had been the person who'd been with me on the day I was told I was transplanted. She'd driven me to the hospital. So as it happens, they were the two sets of people that Leslie was in the building, and then Suzanne and Phil were going up to a concert, and they dropped in on the way. And I just remember all of that.
How lovely.
And she said she didn't hear one song of the concert because she was looking at her phone or wondering what was happening to me. So I went down at about midnight, waving goodbye to everybody, saying, yeah, here I go. And people say to me, well, weren't you frightened? You know, weren't you scared? And I said, to be honest, I was calm as can be, because in my head, because of all my mindset and my positive outlook on life, as I'm being put out, I'm laughing and joking with the anaesthetist, you know, because the little story behind that, he'd already been to the ward to try and get blood out of me or get a needle into me previously. And he was a tall lad, and he was actually down on one knee. And I said, oh, nobody's ever done that to me. So when it was him putting me out for my transplant, I said, oh, you're here again. So,
Yeah.
but I was calm because in my head, I knew that I was out the other side. It was all done and dusted.
And that's what happened. And so
Yeah.
you're out the other side and you woke up, and what was that, those first few moments like?
In actual fact, for me, I don't remember much of coming round. I've got stories about how I did, but and they said I actually fought when they tried to take the
Tube.
tubes out. And I don't really remember coming round.
What do you
And then,
remember though? When you
oh
did
my God,
remember?
I remember when I think my memory is just because you've just been loaded with massive amount of drugs, because you've got to stop rejection and everything and all the other drugs to not get infection and everything. And I just remember the main thing well, there were two main things. Anybody that came and talked to me looked like a stripy tiger, their face.
Okay, that's interesting.
Bit of hallucination. And she'd say, it's Leslie, hello. And I'm obviously looking at her in a sort of stupid way, going, And the other thing for me was like all the walls had sparkly lights all over them. All of them, the floor everywhere had sparkly lights. That's what the drugs were doing to me. Because in actual fact, I've been back to the ITU because they offer you the chance to go back to see it from the other side rather than lying in the bed. And I said, oh, the walls aren't sparkly. And the nurse looked at me. I said, oh, don't worry. I said, that's one of the things that the drugs did to me. But the other thing that I had to deal with initially, and again, I wasn't exactly aware what it was because I just thought it was like a post-transplant thing, was that I actually had a TIA, which is a mini stroke. So I lost some of my speech and the use of my left side, although I didn't know it was my leg. I lost, a hand. I couldn't use the hand very well. It came back in a few days, but that was a bit of a, once I knew it was a bit of a eye opener, because again, I came close to having a full-on stroke, which one of the girls did, and she's still got effects of that now. So,
And do you have any effects of that stroke now?
no, I would say my left side is just, I'm aware that my left leg particularly is a slightly weaker leg, so I have to just work on it. It's not anything, it doesn't stop me walking or doing stuff, but it's just if you put it in a situation that needs a bit more strength at times, it's not so good. But apart from that, no, fine, and then really, I think I wasn't in ITU very long, but it just constant noise, because it's all the machines and all the beeps going off and people just around and lights on, and so you don't really sleep. And one other thing, in actual fact, about being on all the drugs, my nurse that was looking after me, I remember one time, and I remember saying to some, when she came back, said, "Where have you been?" It seemed to me she'd been gone for a day. She'd just been for a coffee break.
So everything, reality is so, well, it's shifted, the perspective shifted. Here you are. So
Yeah.
So let's jump. You're now 2 years, 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
a wonderful heart transplant warrior, helping other people. What would you say about today, and just if you could be concise about that time to now,
Yeah.
what have been the key learnings, if you like? Because I know you're positive. I've been watching from afar, so I know that you're resilient. You've been incredibly positive, despite being challenged in so many different ways with operations and just the whole physicality of it. But tell us, here you are, 2 years, 3 months. My goodness, how wonderful. What have been the biggest learnings or experiences?
I think the biggest learning for me initially was, don't go too fast. Don't, it's not like, boom, I've got a new heart and I can go and run a marathon tomorrow, because you get a bit of that, because you feel so much better. But also, I suppose with that pacing, seeing life in a different way. I had been challenging myself, having been through the issue of not working and not having money, living off money I had and then running out. I had challenged myself to try and get myself back to where I was. So I had the way I could live the way I had when I was working on a well-paid job. And that just isn't the reality anymore. And that's been a hard learning for me, to say, right, I am here with my life, truly blessed to have an amazing donor and a donor heart, and a gift of life that I have. I come to the acceptance that this is where I am, and I am here. So for me, the learnings have been, take what you've got and use it as much as you can. Again, I would say, people say, have you gone back to running? And I said, I haven't even tried. Do I actually need to start running again at nearly 67? I'm not sure whether I really want to, but I would love to go. But then on the other side of it, I would love to go and have another skiing holiday. But I think the resilience and the things I had to learn was that the resilience at times was too much.
In
it
what
almost
respect?
it became almost a negative for me, because I would like, oh, I can manage sort of
Oh, right.
view.
Yep.
So it was positive to have, but at times it overrode and put me in a wrong place. There was a lot of mental recovery, because obviously there's trauma, and I had some additional traumas that you know about, Mary, and dealing with some of those, because in actual fact they weren't planned in or known and prepared for in my head. As I said, I went off down to transplant, happy as can be, because I knew what he was going to do for me. But then other things come out of the blue and you go, well, that's not planned.
That's right.
So to face that, so it's been a learning with that understanding, self digging deep and pulling bits out that you perhaps have put away. So I would say for me, it's just been the greatest learning of me discovering who I am, and being kind as to how I've pulled myself, I wouldn't say pull myself apart, but I actually now say I've shed my old skin and basically have taken that as a place to be, and that I am a new me, because in actual fact, the longest lived heart transplant patient from Harefield is 35 years. So if you say that, I could live until I was 100.
Wouldn't that be wonderful? My goodness. And what a story you could write.
Yeah. I mean, people say I need to write a book.
Indeed you do.
So at stages, yes, again, I find that's the thing I found, because I found the essence of Christine. When I sit and write, I've been doing some things just recently, because there's some people I have a coffee morning with weekly. We're putting a journal together, light journal together, and putting things down. Those things come out and you go, I don't know where that came from.
Yes.
But it's come from, and I very much talk about my soul now and my spirit. And in actual fact, love. And when you reflect that out, it's amazing. And then that's something that's come back to me that I've been amazed about as well. That
the love part or the soulful part?
Both. I mean, the love part isn't particularly like with a partner.
No.
But little example, just the other few weeks ago, I went into one of our local cafes on a Saturday, and I was with a friend, and we were sitting talking, and the girl who was serving us heard what we were talking about, and we got into a conversation. And she's only 18, but when I went back in the other week, she said, oh, it's lovely to see you and whatever. And she said, what we talked about last time really got me thinking. And it was like, she told me this time, so 3 visits in, she said, I've done with the boyfriend, I've done with the boys, I'm looking after me. I want to know who I am and want to go and discover. And I went, oh my goodness. And I suddenly realized that what I had said to her, and she has taken it from me, that I had passed my light to her, or shone my light to her. And she had seen that you can go and be your person. You don't have to fit into all the societal needs or requirements that all the young people have these days. So that was actually, and still is, for me, because we're now in contact, and she's going to go off and travel around the world and things. And it's just, I just feel, wow, she's old enough. Well, I'm old enough to be her grandmother, but she doesn't see me like that, So again, it's that's all the learnings from me that are now being fed out into the world by who I meet and who I am.
You're quite a role model, aren't you? And I know that you're talking to other transplant people and people waiting. This is not meant to be disrespectful, but you're all heart, aren't you?
Yes, and I would say again, there have been things that I've done just recently which really have given me back. I went to see the team at the hospital where my heart condition was first diagnosed, that team looked after me for 12 years, looking at, checking me general reviews, checking my box, see that it's okay, etc. So renew my box when the battery ran out. And I wanted to go back and see them, particularly after the fact that I was, I passed 2 years, and I just went back. And one of the ladies from the physiological side, which is the people that do all the checking with the box, she said to me, she saw me, she ran across the office and just said, "Oh my God, it's so good to see you." She said, "You really have brought a sense of worth to my work." She said, "Because what we do is we keep people alive here. We don't see any end product." And she said, "You are the first one I've seen."
Oh, wow.
As a transplant, somebody that's gone past the situation that you were with me or with us, to seeing you now. She says, "Oh my God, you are amazing. This is just like, wow." And I wanted to go back to give that back because they kept me going.
That's right.
And
how do you say, sorry, how do you say thank you to someone like that? Like 12 years, Christine.
Yeah. By doing that. I didn't need to do it.
What a gift you gave them. And it must be so heartfelt. Sorry, I don't mean to be making
no. It is.
It's just
makes yeah.
And you talk about love and you talk about soul, and all of that comes together in such a heartfelt way, doesn't it? And the whole notion of being filled with love and knowing who you are, knowing your soul purpose, I imagine, must be quite amazing. And you're certainly, I know, a deep inspiration to a lot of people. And we might have to get you back because we've really burned the time. And I said that to you. We'll probably get talking. But I know there's lots more to tell, but I do want to finish here with just so much gratitude for you giving me your time. And over the years, you've inspired me deeply. And what I'd like to ask you as a last question, if you like, what would you say to people that are not really living their life fully and they're not feeling nourished and they're not thriving? What's something you could say to them?
It could be a bit of a cliche. I'll say the first bit is a cliche, but there is one life. You have one life. Live it, but live it in a way that is good for you and not for others. That's where my life went a bit awry. I lived in a life, not in a bad way, but in a life that wasn't truly me. It's the very difficult thing of you do get tied up in expectations of our society, unfortunately. So yes.
And now that is very different, isn't it? You're living your life for you. That's a beautiful testament. But my goodness, so much to go through to get to this precious moment. And it's quite potent. I can really feel that you're living your life. And I love this, what's the word, the lotus flower opening and there's all its beauty. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that you've given us your time. And, you never know, we might get back in touch again. But thank you.
Please do. Please do. Could I just end on something that I wrote just recently, which came to me in the middle of the night, and I was just saying, I'll write it tomorrow morning. And I actually got up and I sat and wrote it on my phone at 1 o'clock in the morning. And it's called inner light. My light shines bright for all to see, even me. Balance and joy is what my light brings, at times even making my heart sing. I shed my old skin and learnt to trust that being true to me is better than letting my body and soul rust. Shine your light and you will see how loving and joyful your life can be.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Lots of love.
Well said. Thank you. And oh my gosh. Oh, it's worth getting up in the middle of the night to
I'll send
tell
you that, Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be lovely. So there you have it, folks. The richness of our lives. Lots of richness here. And this podcast, I encourage you to download it, soak it all up, play it again with a grateful heart. Thank you so much, Christine. Bless you.
Thank you so much.
This week's episode has come to an end, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.